We are going to start a brand new message series on difficult people, okay? How many people know somebody difficult? How many people that person's in this room? If they're in this room, what I want you to do, okay, I just want you to stare at them with everything you got. They'll know who they are, just stare at them, okay? And everybody's staring at me, so I get, and I'm staring at you, so you know who you are, you know who, okay. But anyway, you get the idea. So difficult people. Did you? Oh, you're staring? Okay, I got you. I was really creeped out for a second. I mean, when you have Butch Castle staring at you, it's really weird, okay? So I was like, what is he doing? Man, that was weird. All right, sorry to say that, okay? If you're new and we stared at you, so sorry. Okay, come back, please. But today we're going to talk about difficult people because people can be difficult, right? And communicating with people can be difficult. And understanding each other can be difficult. And why did God put these people in our lives? And we're going to talk a little bit about why does God put difficult people in our lives? How do we handle them? What do we do with them? How do we communicate with them? How do we love them? Is that even possible? And what is God's plan in all of that? And we got some information that maybe will really help you. If you got difficult people in your life, you're going to want to be there. We're going to cover this over the next 4 weeks, and today we're going to start. And what I want to do is I want to give just a little bit of perspective by showing a short video clip, and maybe it helps us a little bit with some perspective. So, all right. So, anybody ever been in that position where you went, I thought they were trying to say something really mean, because they got slammed in the door, and then you realize later, man, that perspective just kind of changes things. So before we get into the people we're going to talk about today, and maybe you want to talk about some difficult people, and we're going to talk about them, I just want to give one little caveat that's going to work through all of what we're going to talk about here as we deal with people in our lives, whether they're difficult or not. James chapter 1 and verse 19 gives this principle, the same thing we see here, of kind of that principle of seek first to understand and then be understood. It's one of the hardest things in the world because we want people to understand what we're saying, but oftentimes we're busy saying it, and so we can't really understand what they're saying. James puts it this way. He says, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Anytime you see in the Bible where it says, dear brothers and sisters, it means if you're a follower of Jesus, this is what you need to do. And in fact, in this case, he's saying, if you want life to go well, pay attention to this. If you're not a Christ follower and you're going, well, I don't have to do that then. That's true, you don't. But you may want to be one once you realize how well Jesus' principles work. A lot of times people started following Jesus even before they believed everything because they said, man, what Jesus says is extremely helpful. my brothers and sisters, please take note. If you have something that says followers of Jesus do this, and he's saying take note, that means this is a very super important principle. And here's what it is. Be quick to listen, be slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Everything about the world that I live in, and I'm sure maybe it's the same for you, is the exact opposite. We are quick to be offended. We are quick to say, we're quick to, ladies will probably agree with this, selectively listen. Or at least that's what my wife tells me a lot. You selectively listen. You only hear certain parts because that's what we're listening for. And we live in such a world that it's like, it's so easy to just see bits and pieces of things that we go, what he's saying is, you got to slow down. You're not really hearing it because we live in such a fast-paced world. And if you want to know with people, I remember in the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, he said, with people, fast is slow and slow is fast. If you really want to know what the key is to getting along with people, you've got to slow it down because we can't understand each other. And we can so easily misunderstand. If you want to know what the key is to dealing with people at all, it's got to do with this. If you want to know the key to dealing with God, understanding God, anybody confused by some of the stuff God's doing? Slow it down. In fact, last Sunday we started because we said, hey, before we start talking about difficult people, I really felt impressed to say, I just need to put this message on hold because there's a principle that comes first. And last Sunday we spent the whole message talking about we need to take pause. We need to slow life down. We had a whole segment on social media and some of the dangers of saying we're on all the time. Everything is instant. Everything is live. Everything. And we said, hey, you know what we got to do? We've got to slow down. And the verse we looked at was Psalms 46 last Sunday. And we talked about be still and know that I am God. That if you want to know God, the key to knowing God is being still and knowing that he's God. Psalm 46 is an amazing passage of scripture because it's speaking of a time where the Israelites had everything going against them. And he basically said, if every natural disaster happens to you, if people are all against you, because that's where they were. They were in Jerusalem, forted up, waiting for this army to come in and slaughter them. Not just take them as prisoners, but to annihilate them. That's what they wanted to do to them. When you're in that situation, he says, what do? Don't act, don't plan. First, be still and know that I am God. If you want the key to dealing with people or difficult people, anybody got difficult people in your life? You already looked at them, so I know you do. I'm in your life, so there's one. Be still and know that he is God. He will give you perspective like you can't believe. So we challenged everybody last Sunday and said, hey, if you want that, then here's what you got to do. 5 minutes a day, just spend time with God. Now, when we say that, I don't mean reading God's word. We believe in that. There's a plan on the back of your outline that how we journal and stuff and hear from God. That's awesome. We're not talking about studying. What we're talking about is just reflecting on God. Just take 5 minutes, put a timer out, and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to think about the character of God. And it will change your life. You can't believe that those 5 minutes could change everything, but God will have an avenue to speak into your life. Absolutely true, okay? You might not always get it right. That's okay. Don't look for things. Don't try to change things. It's simply being with God. Same thing he's saying here. Slow down. Slow everything down, and you'll have a better time with people, okay? So over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be looking at this principle and starting today with critical people. And how many people like criticism? How many people like it when you say, hey, I need to talk to you? Okay. Anybody? Hey, it's going to be serious. Anybody like that? Anybody say, I got something I want to tell you, and it's not good about you, but it should help you. Okay, you get the idea? We don't like to sign up for it. So how do we handle criticism? And today we want to talk about how to respond. And the first thing I want to say is, before we go any further, is you've got to slow down. Because honestly, most of us, we're already defensive before it even happens, right? Sometimes people say, good morning. You're like, what do you mean by that? Right? You knew the day I had, you would understand, right? So how to handle criticism. And the first thing is this. You got to slow down and really pay attention to how I believe that God would want us to respond, and your life will go so much better. When I say respond, I don't mean react. If you're reactionary, it's probably not going to go very well. And I can tell you, I ran the gamut. I've had huge problems in my life with this, and that's not to say I'm perfect now, but I'm better than I was, okay? And I still struggle at times because communication, bar none, will be the hardest thing you ever do in life. And you have to ask yourself a question. This is why you have to slow it down. Do you want to make a point, or do you want to understand each other? Do you want to make a point, or do you want to make a difference? Huge difference. So how do you handle criticism? I want to give you 3 responses. I want to give you 3 things and 3 different responses. I want to talk about the first one, which will be the hardest one to listen to, and then we're going to get to the ones that everybody wants to talk about, which is unjust criticism. Anybody ever got unjust criticism? Malicious criticism that you go, those people don't have my best interest at heart. They're really just trying to push me down. We're going to talk about that. How do you respond to that? But we're going to wait on that one because there's one that comes first, and if you slow it down, you'll recognize this one, and this one could help you in your life, okay? So number 1, if it's constructive, you need to listen to it. If it's constructive, meaning if it's there to build you up, you need to pause and listen to it. You don't have to respond. In fact, a lot of things don't require a response. They're just listen. Now, some people won't allow you just to listen. They're going to prod you, and they want an answer, and so these things don't come in nice, neat little packages. Does everybody understand that? If you're married, you get that, right? I mean, like criticism don't always come, even the constructive kind don't always come in nice little packages or nice, neat little things. It doesn't work that way. With people, fast is slow, slow is fast, and it's not efficient. It's effective. There's a big difference. Okay? You can't be efficient with people. You can be efficient with processes. You cannot be efficient with people. If you do, you're going to have huge problems. If you're a task-oriented person, you'll struggle more because you'll be looking at what to do and the right way to do it, but you won't be paying attention to the person, and you'll never get there. You'll wonder what the roadblock is like. What is right? Yeah, it's right, but it's not. They don't understand, and so you got to slow it down. So if somebody's coming to you with something and they go, "Hey, this is constructive. It's going to help you in your life." Here's what the Bible has to say about that. Proverbs teaches it this way. Proverbs 27, verse 5. It says, "Better is open rebuke than hidden love." Does anybody like to be openly rebuked? If you were born in the South, you know what open rebuke feels like. Okay. You got a parent. Okay. My mom's here. I got to be careful. My mom had one. If she wanted to openly rebuke you, all she had to do was stare at you with her eyes. That's it. She could still do it, and it's the scariest thing. It's the closest thing I've seen to hell to this day. And I'm telling you, it's there, and it's like, whoa, what's that behind there? Okay, you don't want to see it. And I'll tell you what, whatever you're doing, you'll straighten up. That's okay, you get the picture. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds of a friend can be trusted, but the enemy multiplies their kisses. Be careful that we don't become, hey, if somebody says something about me, that means they're bad. It's easy to do though, right? Our natural response typically is, how dare you say I'm wrong? You must be bad. And we're going to talk about maliciousness in a minute because this doesn't fit that. If it's malicious, you're not going to want to listen to it. But you got to ask yourself a few questions. And today I want to give you a couple questions to write down. In fact, I wrote them down and I didn't want to forget them. So I just want to add a couple things. You know, in another place it says, hey, the wounds of a friend are better than kisses of an enemy. That's true. Flattery doesn't just help. Sometimes that's even worse. And all of us probably can look back to a time when we didn't appreciate it in the moment, but somebody told us something that maybe we didn't want to hear, and it changed our life for the good, right? It saved us from going, man, you were about to make the biggest mistake of your life. I'll tell you, I probably wouldn't be standing here today if somebody didn't say, whoa, don't do that. So I didn't like them for it. Hey, you're fat. You know, I started losing weight. And I've lost it several times and gained it back several times. But I remember one time somebody's like, hey, you're fat. Okay, I didn't like that, but it's true. And it helped my life. You gotta be careful how you say it, but you get the picture. And so it's kind of like, hey, there's other things. I would probably be in jail today if somebody didn't say, hey, take pause. I didn't want to hear that. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't know why I'm so angry. You don't know what I'm about to do. And it's like, no, stop. Criticism can change your life for the good if it's done in the right way. Correction can be done, and there's all kinds of ways to do it. For most of us, though, here's the problem. We don't necessarily disagree with the criticism. This is what I hear the most, because I do a lot of conflict resolution as a pastor, a lot of marriage counseling, this type of stuff. And what I hear the most is, it's not what the person's saying. Can you guess what it is? It's how. It's how, okay, it's the package that it comes in. So a couple things with that, because it doesn't always come in a nice, neat little package. Some of that's on our end because some of us are so tough and so hard, and we're so Winston Churchill-like, you know, that we're like, hey, we'll never surrender, that it has to come in those packages for us to actually hear it. Having said that, here's a couple things to consider, okay? A couple things to ask yourself. You can write this down. When you're considering, ask yourself this: what is the person's motive? If a person's coming to you and they got something they want to share, and whether it comes in a nice package or not, ask yourself the question, what's behind that? What's the question behind the question? What are they trying to do? And if this is a trusted person, then you might want to just listen to it. If you go, I'm not quite sure that it's trusted, then you need to ask yourself a question. Is what they're saying true? Now, just because it's true doesn't mean they're trying to help you. Did you know that? That you can use the truth to actually hurt people. Let me give you an example. Gossip is true. Sometimes gossip is 100% true, but it's 100% damaging, meaning Satan can use truths to hurt people. So don't just question whether it's true. Ask, what are they trying to do here? And if they're trying to help you, then you need to listen to it. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. By the way, you can listen to people without agreeing. Now, that doesn't mean people will understand. Sometimes people think, because you listen to me, that means you agree with me, and you just have to kind of come back and say, well, I'm empathetically listening. I'm empathically listening. It means I can listen without agreeing. And some people think, well, you have to agree with me, and then you got a whole different problem. It's like, I'm always right. And that's the other question I want you to ask yourself. When's the last time you were wrong? That'll tell you something, too. I can't remember. I haven't been wrong, right? Ask your spouse, okay? Okay, you're not ready for that. Don't ask your spouse. But you get the idea. Hey, if you're always right and you have to always be right and you can never be wrong, there might be an issue. Can I tell you what will really help the equation? And this is what's helped me in my life, because here's what I've learned. The thing that brought self-realization for me was this. The day I realized, wait a minute, the difficult person is me. I don't always see the world correctly. This is hard. This is very, very difficult. Because if I were to say, are you crazy? The answer would be how would I know, right? I think I see the world right. I think I'm seeing everything correctly. But what I realize is sometimes my viewpoint is skewed. And you know what has helped me the most, even before becoming a pastor, was understanding the power of the inner circle. Now, you got to be careful with that. You got to select people that don't just tell you what you want to hear, but you got to select a broad range of people, and that's one of the reasons why we're part of Acts 2 Network, and I have several pastors I meet with and share things with them, and people that will tell you the things, hey, how did I do? Hey, what is this? Hey, when people throw something at you and you go, yeah, I don't like how that came in, and you sit down with them and you go, hey, let me ask you a question. Do I do that? And sometimes they go, yeah, right? Or sometimes it's this. 15 people have come to you and said, you have this problem, and you're going, I don't have that problem. Well, I left the last place because they told me I had that problem. Sorry. And you watch people, and if you're a church hopper, and I know if you're new here today, you're probably already offended, but I can tell you, we're going to offend you very quickly, okay? Just so you know. Because here's what I know. If you had the problem at the last place, you'll have it at the next place, the next place, next place, next place. Now, I'm not talking about a one-off, okay? If it's a one-off, hey, this church treated me poorly, I get it. But if it's every time, you got to start asking is it everybody else? Or am I just attracted to people that abuse me? We're going to talk about how to get through that cycle too, because there are people that are attracted to people that abuse them, and they've learned a so-called Christian principle that's not a Christian principle. And we want to talk a little bit about that today. Otherwise, you'll keep repeating the cycle of abuse. You're listening to criticism you shouldn't be. You mean there's criticism I don't have to listen to? Yeah, we're going to talk about that, but not yet, okay? You start with, is it true? Is the motive pure? If it is, listen to it. Doesn't mean you have to change necessarily, but you need to let that introduce into your life, because here's the thing. You're going to destroy yourself if you think there's no blind spots in your life. If you're constantly being blindsided, you didn't see it coming, you really need to think about, am I paying attention to constructive criticism? Very, very important. If it is, then listen to it, okay? That's pretty simple. It can be hard, it can be difficult to work through those things, and I know these are all complex situations, but if the motive's right and it's true, and you got trusted advisors saying yes, then listen to it and be a better person for it. You'll be much better off doing that, and maybe coming up with a better way next time. So, that's number one. The second thing is this. Oh, I got some questions for you to ask, so other ones. Here's some advice. Do not try to play this out in social media. Okay? Can I just, would everybody here, amen, right? Be like, I don't want to see that in my news feed. Okay? When I wake up in the morning, I don't need to hear your criticism of someone else on Facebook. And I just need to be clear, it never helps. That's so true, right? I mean, like I have never yet seen a conflict resolve healthy when they've played it out through Facebook. Like, we're going to resolve this problem by bringing all my friends, and you're going to bring in all your friends, and then we're going to make this thing bigger, and the people are responding to a soundbite think of it this way. This goes back to our motives, okay? Now, you can't control what somebody else does other than you can unfriend them, and you can stop looking at that stuff because it's toxic, okay? And I'm saying that because I go, here's the reason why it's so toxic. Everybody's responding to a soundbite, and you have no idea what's really going on. And the question you have to ask yourself is the motive. Why are we doing this? Well, I'm trying to make a point. And then I ask the people that do it, because there's a lot of, especially the political rants. Who have you convinced? I mean, I look at how many people like your post. It's none, okay? I mean, nobody wants to get involved in that, right? I mean, as you're going, why do you do this? It doesn't resolve. It's not a healthy way to resolve it, and it doesn't make your point anyway. And the question you got to ask is, do you want to make a point, or do you want people to understand? Are you looking for resolution? And if you're playing it out on social media, I'm telling you, you're not looking for resolution. There's a different thing you're looking for, and that is toxic. Don't do it. I've done it a few times myself, so I'm just as guilty as anybody else, and I go, it never helped. Don't do it. Don't play it out that way, because it's not going to help you. Spend more time. Slow it down. Don't try to play it. If you need more stuff about social media, we played a whole clip last Sunday from Simon Sinek that kind of helped us understand. Here's where to use social media, and I believe in it. I think it's awesome, but there's certain things not to do, and that's one of them. And I'm telling you, it's been devastating, and you can't imagine the hurt and the pain that's being caused. Here's what we want to see. We want to see pictures of your dog. We want to see pictures of your family. We see your vacations, what you're eating. Okay, I don't care. But show stuff that we actually are happy. When I look in my newsfeed in the morning, I don't need to see, hey, we're all trying to deal with all these problems. Let's deal with those one-on-one, okay? Let's deal with those with the people that are part of the problem and part of the solution, and it will make your life go so much better. The second thing is this. Criticism is like a spice, okay? If you're cooked, then you'll understand this. I don't do a lot of cooking, but I do understand this part because I do a lot of eating, okay? You can overuse spice. Now, I love spicy food. Okay, some people don't. I love it. I mean, I love really hot, spicy food. I go to a Chinese restaurant. You want hot? You want spicy? You want Chinese hot? I want Chinese hot. I love it. But at one time, I meet with some pastors in Chesapeake, and the lady that's the restaurant owner, she goes to community church, and so we always go there. And she has spicy mustard, and I like that. So I was like, hey, I got some spicy mustard, and I put it all over my food. I mean, I just doused all my food with it. And luckily, she was there. She said, oh, John, don't eat that. I was like, wow, I like hot. Well, it's hot, but you're not going to like this. Here's what you need to do, John. You need to try just a little bit. Thank God I did, because my brain probably would have just ruptured from what it was. I mean, because it was like, it had so much horseradish or whatever it is they put in there, and it was like, whoa, it's excellent. Just a little bit, okay? Now, that is true for criticism. We think that our criticism does more for us than it does. It is awesome, and constructive criticism is awesome, but just a little bit. If you go too far and you think it's going to do more, then here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to Szechuan Inn in Chesapeake Square and go in there and you ask her, you say, John sent me to get some hot mustard. And every time you think about doing a lot, I want you to eat a lot of that hot mustard. That's what it feels like when you do it. Okay, I'm serious. And you think you're doing stuff, but you are doing more damage than that hot mustard is going to do to you, and you're going to feel something when you take that, okay? And you're going to go, yeah, I don't want to do that. So every time you think, just eat a little bit of it, have that mustard there, and go, hey, before I give a criticism, I'm going to eat a little bit of hot mustard, and that's how much criticism I'm going to give. Just give it a little bit. Doesn't mean you shouldn't give it at all. Don't give too much, or you're going to destroy relationships, you're going to destroy lives, and you have no idea how hurtful and painful and the stuff on the back end that I have to refer people to counseling and give counsel and help people for stuff people said 60 years ago. Serious. Stop it. It's not helping. You think it is, but it's not. And I know maybe your motive is correct, but you don't realize a little bit goes a long way. Plus, they can't hear any more than that. They're only going to hear a little bit at a time. And you got to ask yourself a question. Well, it's true. I just let the chips fall where they do. Were you trying to communicate, or are you trying to make your point? You didn't make a point, by the way. They didn't understand you. So if you're real communication, understand the Bible is saying if you are a follower of Jesus, fast is slow and slow is fast. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. It's going to change your life, I'm telling you. If you want it to be constructive, that's a little bit of advice for it, okay? Okay, the next point is this, number two. If it's unjust, okay, anybody have unjust criticism? We just talked about just criticism that's trying to build you up. You ever had criticism that's tearing you down, or it's not true? And you're going, I'm sorry, that's not true. And you went through the process of number one, and you went, I'm trying to listen, and then I verified all the stuff, and I'm going, it's not true, it's unjust, and it's malicious, or it feels malicious. Before we go to what to do with the malicious people, here's what I want to say. Some people aren't malicious, they're just misinformed. And what conversation will do for you is this, is if information could change their perspective, then what you need to do is you need to answer it. That's when you need to speak. That's why it says slow to speak. It doesn't mean don't speak. It doesn't mean dismiss all criticism. Some people, that's all you do, right? Somebody, it could have turned away, but instead of turning it away, you know what we did? We shut it down and didn't say a word, and we let them be misinformed, and they misunderstood, and it caused a huge problem, okay? So what I want to say is, if it's unjust, and an answer could help give perspective, then you need to try that, okay? You might not know until you do it. Once you give perspective, you'll realize they'll shut you down. It's just like giving feedback. Before you give somebody feedback, ask them if they want feedback. Some people think they want feedback, so they just give it. And you're being rejected, and you go, why ain't they listening to me? Because they don't want your feedback. Okay. Ask first, do you want feedback? If you don't, give it. Answer them if a little bit could go a long way. So here's the verse that I want to give you. Proverbs says this, Proverbs 15, verse 1. And it's not 1a, I just made a typo, and it's supposed to be a is the word, okay? So a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Gentle. You know when you can be gentle? When it comes to criticism? Somebody criticizes you and you're going to be gentle is when you slow it down. Think about that as you give criticism too. If you want it to go well, slow it down a little bit. Don't try to surprise people. Don't drop bombs. Don't shock and awe. You might get stuff that you're not ready for, and you're like, why did they respond that way? Well, they're responding to the way it was presented. Having said that, if you think, hey, you see the person, and it's kind of like the video clip we showed where the kid is walking up the hill, and he's so mad, and the Chinese master could have went, you know what, I'm more powerful than you, and you're coming to my class, and he could have kicked that kid off the hill, right? I mean, like, that's what I saw coming. It's like, if you keep banging on my door, I'm going to kick you off the hill. But he didn't, right? He kept saying, you don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm saying, look at the sign. If you just go, I want you to go in the other entrance. That's it. That's all I want. And a gentle word could turn it down. They're going, I think you're doing this. I think you're doing that. And if you, maybe some perspective could help. Doesn't mean it always helps, but it could help just a little bit. A great leadership lesson that I learned, this is from John Maxwell, is that people carry two different buckets in life. You know what I mean? You carry gasoline and you carry water. Now, both are necessary for things. Gasoline is to get things going. Fire is necessary for life. So if you throw gasoline on it, it means in a controlled environment, you can get that fire going and blazing, and they're trailblazers, and they get the world going, right? And then there's water. And when you deal with leadership stuff, when you deal with people, you're going to have situations where you go, when problems arise, there are like little fires in your life, and here's the problem. You got to know which bucket to use. And I swear, I think some people just have both gasoline, right? You know those people, or is it just me? And what happens is when there's a conflict, you'll know, when there's a problem, let me tell you something, it isn't one that you go, man, we had this problem and we resolved it. It's everybody's going to know about the problem, right? Because they come in and they just throw gasoline on it, and the whole world knows. Every single time. A gentle answer stops that. Don't do that. Don't do, we'll never surrender when you're trying to not start a war, okay? Right? I mean, you want everything to be a war. There are things worth fighting for, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There are hills worth dying on, but not all of them, right? I mean, like, some people are just like, we're picking a fight over everything. No, that's a problem. Bloom, right? And maybe you just have to realize, hey, sometimes somebody's criticizing you and they just don't have all the information, and you're ready to go to war, and you're going, whoa, no, it's not time to go to war. This person's not malicious. They just don't understand. And a gentle answer, if you can slow it down, this is why being still and knowing that he's God, how many people feel like that when you go, what they just said is so wrong, and I'm just going to post on Facebook about them, right? I'm going to tell everybody what they do, and my friends are going to gang up on their friends, and that's not good. Gentle answer can slow all that stuff down. And if you can do that, you could turn away, and a lot of problems couldn't happen. A lot of people wouldn't go to war. A lot of things would just simmer down and be okay. Just keep that in mind. Think about it. What am I throwing on this? By me responding, how am I responding? If you can give a gentle answer, then respond. If you can't, you're just going to make it worse. Take it from somebody that has to sit in a whole lot of this with married couples and everybody else, and realizing, hey, this could have been a lot of things, a lot of bad, serious arguments are over really silly things. that once we got down to it, we're like, we're actually on the same page. We're just mad at each other because of some stuff. But a gentle answer could turn away a lot of that. But because we didn't wait and we responded in the moment and we reacted instead of responding, we answered when we shouldn't have, or we didn't answer when we could have, if we would slow down. Now, if you're spending 5 minutes alone with God a day, that's going to help you a lot. Meditation will help you a lot. Meditation on God would help you more. I'm telling you. A gentle answer could turn it away. So that's number two. Number three, if it's unjust and the person is overly critical or unhealthy, dismiss it. Ignore it. Don't focus on it. It will be the hardest thing you'll ever do for some people. And it will seem like the unchristian thing to do. Now, let me be clear. There's a reason why I set it all up for this, because this is the one that I see a lot of people, some people struggling with. However, here's the problem. If you're asking me and I go, you want to be a right person, and you go, the first thing I'm going to do is, okay, yes, you're right. It's absolutely unjust, and I'm going to dismiss it. If you haven't tried the first two, then you're not ready for this yet, okay? If you don't know that, then you need to slow it down. If you're automatically going to this, and you're going, 15 people have told you have a problem and you're dismissing it, that's not what we're talking about. They're all unhealthy. The whole world's unhealthy but me. No, that's not true, okay? But if that person, you're going, hey, I talked to my trusted advisor, this is malicious content, this is not good. There are some people that have learned a biblical principle that says we will forgive, which is 100% correct. We're not talking about holding a grudge, but we are saying there is a time that you go, I will not have my life defined by somebody's unjust, malicious criticism. So true. And it could come from an unhealthy place for them. Maybe they're unhealthy emotionally. Maybe they're just a person that attacks people. Maybe they're a person that sees the world through a wrong lens. I don't know. We're not judging what they're doing, but we're going, that's coming. Or some people are going, they're out to get you, right? There are. And you go, you've got to adjust, and you go, what do you do with that? And you've got to dismiss it, or else it's going to destroy your life. Now, I want to give you an example of it, because some of you guys are right there and you're thinking, well, I don't know that sounds Christian, because we should listen to everybody. And that's not true. I don't think God would say, you know what, the devil has a lot to say too. Don't give the devil an audience. When you argue with the devil, can I tell you something about that? He'll win every time. It's true. The devil will win every time. He'll make his points, and eventually he'll wear you down, and the only way to get past the devil is not to focus on the devil. We don't fight the devil. We focus on God. We stand in the power of the Holy Spirit. There's way too many people trying to take the devil on, and it's rare that God ever said, I need you to directly confront the devil. No, what you need to do is stop focusing on the devil and start focusing on God. Because the problem is you're letting that define your life. And unfortunately, Satan uses people. Now, I'm not saying people or the devil. What I'm saying is sometimes that can get in there, and it's defining your life, and it's making you miserable, right? And you're focused so much on that person. And this is going to help your life in ways that you can't believe, okay? So dismiss it. Here's what Jesus did, and I'll just give you that. Matthew chapter 15 and verse 12. Before I go there, let me explain what's happening to Jesus. He had his earthly ministry. You can go back and read the whole thing. He's teaching some hard principles, and the Pharisees are criticizing him for it. And pretty bold, too. Like, I don't know what he's doing. Don't know why he's hanging out with those people. Don't know why he thinks they're okay to hang out with. Don't know why he's not listening to us. He's really bad, and now they're starting to say harsh things. They're like the underlining thing. You ever seen that? Like the politically charged people that have all the things to say, and now they're going, we're not saying it directly, we're actually coming at it passive-aggressive, and they're trying to make their points to everybody else on the side. And Jesus knows it, but more than that, the disciples know it, and here's what they say to him. Matthew chapter 15 and verse 12. Then the disciples came to him and asked, do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this? They're talking about what he just said. Did you know that what you said offended the Pharisees? Can I say it's kind of duh? If you read the passage, you'll know what Jesus said was probably taken offensive by the Pharisees. You know what this means? There's people that think that, and they're going, you need to engage in this criticism, and Jesus knows that they're maliciously trying to get him. In fact, they're going as far to say, we want to kill you. Now, there's a time that a gentle answer turns away wrath, except for one thing. Can I tell you what it is? When the person's malicious. Giving grace to the malicious will not help, believe me. It doesn't turn their hearts. In the book of Isaiah, it says that God says, hey, if you give grace to people that are malicious, it's not going to go well for you. In fact, there's never a time. In fact, when God gave grace to Pharaoh in Egypt, you know what it did? It hardened his heart. Don't think for a second people that abuse, people that are coming with wrong motives, and you're listening to what they say, you think that that's going to make you a better person. It's not. It's going to make you worse because they're trying to push you down. But understand, you got to do the first two things, or else you'll very easily misunderstand and go, "Oh, that person's malicious." No, they're not. They're trying to help you. That person's malicious. No, they're not. They just misunderstand. But there is a time where you go, "No, they're actually out to get me." And some people have allowed people to continue to abuse them over and over and over, because they think they're doing the gracious thing. And Jesus is saying, let me tell you what Jesus had to say. Verse 13, he replied, "Every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be pulled up by its roots." Is that clear to everybody what he's saying? That's pretty bold. Verse 14, "Leave them. They are blind guides, and if the blind lead the blind, both will fall into a pit." They're blind. They don't want to see. It's not that they couldn't see. It's that they don't want to see. And it's like wrestling with a pig, basically, is what he's saying. The only one that's going to be happy at the end when you're dirty is the pig. And that's what he's saying. Stop listening to it. You know what he's saying? You know what I have to say for the Pharisees that are out to get me? Ignore them. Don't focus on them. Stop focusing on that. And it about destroyed the disciples because they're going, but they're in charge. But they have all this power and they're saying all these things and you got to go out there and correct it. And I don't know if they had Facebook in those days on the camels, but maybe they did. And so you're going, "Hey, you need to put out a camel message, because I get your name and they're down mouthing you, and maybe just comply, Jesus." You know what he said? "No, I'm not going to." Because they're blind guides and their thing is malicious. And even more importantly, here's where the problem is. It's taking me off my mission. I'm not going to change my message because somebody says, "Well, I don't like that." So what? And Jesus has enough intestinal fortitude to say, "Yes, I know you say that offends you, but that doesn't mean that I need to change." Now, Jesus, understand, he was perfect. So we have to slow it down. That's why I say the biggest thing we have to do is slow down. Otherwise, we're going to be brash and arrogant, right? And we're going to constantly come back to this, and you're going to say, "Well, John just said I don't have to listen to people." That is not what I said. We started by saying, slow it down, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. But when your inner circle, who is not just, you've selected it very carefully, and you got people that are godly speaking into your lives, and they're saying, you really shouldn't be listening to that. That's not who you are. Stop letting that define you. What do you have to do? Let it go. Let it go. We're not talking about retaliating, okay? We're not talking about holding a grudge. We're talking about letting it go. Because here's what I've learned, or am learning. When we're obsessed with what other people are saying about us, anybody obsessed with that? You'll know because of this. If somebody criticizes you, what do you think about? In fact, some of you, I want you to think about the person that's criticized you most, that you're just going, "I can't stand them." When you said difficult people, their face just flashed in front of you. Can I tell you why it bothers you so bad? Well, they're a terrible person. Maybe they are. I don't know. That's not why, though. Because you are focused on what people are saying. You're letting it define you. That's why. Why does it bother you so bad that they said that? Well, it's wrong. Okay, so what? Why are you focused on it? I can tell you why. Because you're more focused, and this is what the hard part is, you're focused more on what people are saying about you than what God is saying about you. And what Jesus is saying here is this: it's taking you off mission, and it will. It will not make you happy, joyous, and free. You correcting it will not make you happy, joyous, and free. You got to move beyond it. Now, I understand it could be tricky. And by the way, it was tricky for Jesus. Can I tell you how it ended up for him? They crucified him. But that was God's mission. God has a plan for those people in your life. Did you know that? But his plan is not for you to allow them to take you off mission. That's not God's plan. The key to this whole thing is this, is you cannot please all people. Okay, you want to write it down? You cannot please all people, but you can please God. Some of you are trying to live down things that people are saying about you, and you never will. You can't. You can please God. You can't please all the people. I'll give you an example. In the church, we've tried to please people, okay? And we do. We want people to be pleased. But there's one issue that comes up quite a bit, and I'll just pick on this one because it's easier and hopefully nobody gets offended. They probably will. But people say, hey, what are we going to do about the temperature in this room? And we say, well, what do you mean? It's freezing in here. Now, same day, somebody comes up and says, what are we going to do about the temperature in this room? It's burning up in here. And I go, how do we get everyone together? And so I remember me and Alvin talking about it, and we said, if you could tell us the perfect temperature that will please all people, we will do that, okay? And if you've mentioned those things before, we're not picking on you. It's just one illustration of going, you can't please all people. It's a loser. You can't do it. And sometimes you can't please anybody. Can I tell you that? Sometimes it feels like, man, I made a choice and everybody's mad, no matter what you do, right? It's true. And you are going from thing to thing, and the way that you can just tell if you're good is anybody criticizing me today? If they criticize me, it's bothering you to no end, and you don't know how to let it go. Now, sometimes it's bothering you because you're wrong. That's okay. Wrestle through it. Sometimes it's bothering you because they said it about you, and it's not right, and you know it's not right, and somebody else told you it's not right, and you've already gotten 50 advisors to say it's not wrong, and it's still bothering you, because you're more worried about what people are saying about you than God. And the problem is that it's taking you off mission. Can I tell you who's behind that? When criticism comes and it takes you off mission, that is not coming from God. That's coming from the devil, right? Now, they might not be doing it for that reason, but the devil is working that over in your head, and it's time to let that stuff go. I'll give you a verse for it. 1 Thessalonians, the Apostle Paul writes this. The Apostle Paul says this in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 to the church at Thessalonica. They were confused by a lot of things, and they were facing all kinds of controversy in their church. And he said this, on the contrary, we speak as those approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel. We are not trying to please people, but God who tests our hearts. That's a huge principle. The Apostle Paul learned it. Something funny about the Apostle Paul, just a side note. The Apostle Paul, I think and I appreciate him being vulnerable in the scriptures. There's a couple of times where he says, I know I'm not a very good speaker, okay? And what that meant is somebody told him he wasn't very good. He's probably monotone or something. I think he's obviously a great writer. He wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. He's an awesome writer, but oftentimes awesome writers don't make good speakers. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen an author and you're like, oh, wow, they shouldn't speak. That might be what it was like with Paul. I don't know, but I think that's probably how he felt. And he wasn't a very concise speaker, okay? We know that because there was an occasion in the book of Acts, and if you want to know it, just read the book of Acts and you'll find this place. And what happens is he's preaching all night, okay? Now, you guys sometimes, the reason why I'm saying this is maybe I feel like, I've heard a lot, John, you've preached too long. Okay, no, I'm just playing. And so I want to make my point this day is to go, at least I'm not like the Apostle Paul. So the Apostle Paul is holding a meeting, and he's got all these people in there, and they're listening to him, and he preaches all night. I see you back there, Butch. I feel you. And the Apostle Paul is preaching all night long. And he preaches so long that a young guy, teenager, sitting in the back of the room on a 2-story building, falls out the window and dies, okay? Now, I just want to say, I've never had anybody die yet, okay? But those of you who are sleeping, maybe wake that person up. You know who you are. Go ahead and wake them up right now. The Apostle Paul goes out the room, heals him, brings him back from the dead, and finishes his message. I mean, that's determination. Now, I bring that up because here's the thing, okay? Now, maybe he could have learned some better speaking habits. And you're going, man, I mean, I'm telling you, if somebody dies in your service, please wrap it up. I mean, come on, right? Live to preach another day. Good night. But here's my point. He didn't let it take him off mission. People got saved that day. Does he have flaws? Yes. Is it right to criticize him? Absolutely. But what I'm saying is this, is whether it's valid or not valid, if it's constructive, listen to it. But don't you dare let it take you off mission. Because what I see the biggest danger of criticism in this world is you're working it over in your head again and again and again and again and again. And what Satan is doing is he's going, yeah, I got you, because here's what you got. Even if you're not wrong, you're letting that just rupture your mind. Stop listening to what people are saying and start listening to what God is saying. And yes, God uses people in your life. That's what you have trusted people to say. Am I seeing it right? Don't be quick to judge if somebody's criticizing you. Don't be quick to judge if somebody harshly criticizes you. But don't you dare allow criticism to define your life and get you off point, off mission. Rise above it. That's what Jesus did. That's what Jesus did. But there's one other caveat to this, and that's this. Jesus also didn't hold a grudge. Now, he didn't allow criticism to stand. I mean, if you look at the life of Jesus, he didn't allow it to take him off point. He didn't let people dictate his schedule just because they criticized him, just because they were offended by him, just because they were so-called hurt by him. They did, right? When Lazarus died, you read it for yourself. We are so hurt by you, Jesus. He didn't change his schedule. Now, we're not Jesus, okay? So we need correction in our life. But I want to tell you, don't allow it to control your life. You'll never be free. You'll never be happy, joyous, and free if you allow criticism to get inside of you. The other thing is this. There's one last caveat, and that's this. He did not hold a grudge. Because some people are going, you're right, and they're wrong, and now I'm so mad at them. Don't do that. You pray for them to be happy, joyous, and free. Think of it this way. You can pray for every person on this planet to be happy, joyous, and free, right? No matter how malicious they are. Why? Because if they were happy, joyous, and free, this world would be a better place. Because there's only one way to be happy, joyous, and free, and that's through Jesus Christ. And we're praying, hey, I don't know if I'm right, I don't know if they're right, but I'm praying every day for them to be happy, joyous, and free. When you sit down and be stilled and know that he is God, let go of that stuff and let God do a work in your life. And you remember this, that those that criticize Jesus, those that he's talking about right here, and we hear how harsh he is, so many times people think, well, Jesus was harsh with the Pharisees, so I'll be harsh with other people. But remember this, the same ones that did it eventually crucified him for things that he didn't do. If there was ever a person that was falsely criticized, it was Jesus. And you know what he said as he was being crucified? One of his last statements where he had to pick them very carefully because he only had enough strength to say a few. He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Do not hold a grudge. Take it from somebody that did. That's how Satan will get you out of the fight. You'll drink that poison thinking you're hurting them and you're hurting yourself. Some of you need to be free today. You are living under this false thing that says, I'm listening to what other people said. Maybe you even did those things, and you're letting Satan just push you down. And today is the day that you need a chance to rise above it by the power of God. That's what he's saying. Stop listening to what people say and start listening to what God says. I've been reading the book of Isaiah, and you know what I found? God's opinion is the only one that matters. That's what he says. Why are you looking at what they're saying? Why are you focused on what they're saying? It hurts me so deeply. You know why? You know why you're so obsessed with figuring out what they're saying about you? Why I'm so obsessed with what people are saying? Because I'm worried how it's going to turn out because I'm not trusting God. It's time that we do it. Some of you guys are being defined by things that happen to you, and the person's no longer even alive. And that record player is going off in your head. For those of you that are younger, that iPod is going off in your head. Okay, sorry. It's going off in your head over and over and over, and you're being defined by something that was said 50, 60 years ago, 10 years ago. Somebody said something, and it's still going through your head, and it's defining your moment because you believe more in what somebody said than what God said. Let me tell you what God thinks about you. He loves you right where you are and too much to leave you there. Have you made mistakes? Of course you have. But God is ready to forgive you and move you on, and he has a purpose and a plan for your life, and don't you dare believe anybody else that tells you something different. And if you'll embrace that, let me tell you what can happen. You could be free from a life of criticism. That doesn't happen overnight, right? We're going to need help. If it's constructive, listen to it. If you can add value, if you can add perspective, then say something about it. If not, then here's the thing. If it's malicious and it's holding you down and it's been defining you your whole life, it's time to let it go. By God, let it go. And God will help you with that. And for the first time in your life, here's what I know. They might not be happy, joyous, and free today, but you can. And it will change your life, I'm telling you. So here's what I want to do. Let me pray for you today. Let's stand for prayer.